Tonight, Harvey Range remains identified, but could the killer now be released earlier? Charges laid, new details on the killing in Cranbrook, the dispute about home renovations which allegedly sparked it all. Police put a major dent in the North Queensland drug trade. Bill Shorten's plan to ship Navy jobs into Townsville. And a groundbreaking project sees reinvigorated coral implanted off our coast.
This is 9 News North Queensland.
Good evening. There's been a major breakthrough in a missing persons case which has gripped Queenslanders. Human remains found on the side of a road near Townsville have been identified as Julie Hutchinson. The 48-year-old mother of 3 disappeared more than 3 years ago. Her husband convicted of her manslaughter.
It was a day Julie Hutchinson's family thought might never come, but had never lost hope would one day arrive.
We've spent many hours waiting for confirmation that the remains found up on Harvey's Range Road are those of our Jules.
The remains, spotted by the side of a remote road near Townsville by a passing driver and forensically examined by police, found right near where her husband said he'd dumped her body, understandably sparking speculation the skeleton might be hers.
This past week has been harrowing and our lives have been tipped upside down once again.
The confirmation came yesterday thanks to dental comparisons. Close family, including Julie's 2 sons, made a harrowing journey to the cruel grave to pay their respects.
We were confronted with the reality of what took place during that terrible time, realising her body was dumped without a grain of humanity.
Julie went missing in April 2015. Her husband, Michael Hutchinson, wove a web of lies to cover up her disappearance, saying she died in an altercation with intruders at her home, then dumped her body at Harvey's Range but couldn't remember where. Evidence was found in a car boot of bleach and other cleaning chemicals, plus Google search history about stopping a dead body from smelling. Despite the breakthrough, there are still plenty of unanswered questions. Because only a skeleton was able to be recovered, there were no new clues as to exactly how Julie died. At least for now, her family can finally lay her body to rest.
Live now to Philip Calder in Townsville. And Phil, the discovery means Julie Hutchinson's killer could now be released earlier.
Yes, Sam, Michael Hutchinson was initially sentenced to 15.5 years jail, eligible for parole after serving just 80% of that sentence. Now, that was before the introduction of the Palaszczuk government's no body, no parole legislation. And under that legislation, Michael Hutchinson would have had to serve that entire sentence because he never revealed the location of Julie's body. Well, now that Julie's body has been found, we now understand that that legislation no longer applies and he could be released from prison in as little as 9 years, and that's cold comfort for the family involved. Sam?
Yes, a worrying thought. Thank you. Phil Calder reporting from Townsville for us there. Thank you, Phil. Townsville police believe they've dealt a significant blow to the drug trade in North Queensland after shutting down 2 labs yesterday. Officers seized commercial quantities of meth and almost $70,000 worth of cash while executing raids across 3 Townsville properties.
Hidden in a can of WD-40, officers discovered what they had already suspected. This was no normal drug bust.
A lot of the laboratories we find in North Queensland are small personal use type labs. The labs allegedly located yesterday were certainly more of the commercial size.
In a 3-pronged attack, police swooped on 3 properties, a residence in Gulliver and 2 addresses they will allege held drug labs, one hidden in Kurrajong and another in Rasmussen. There they found $250,000 worth of methamphetamine alongside equipment and chemicals used in the production of the drug. Weapons too, a loaded shotgun and tasers, all part of the haul. Police say it's a crippling blow to the drug trade across the region.
Certainly our investigation today indicates they would be spread right across North Queensland.
2 Townsville locals were taken into custody and appeared in the magistrates' court today.
A 40-year-old male and a 38-year-old female, both residents of Gulliver. They've been charged with a number of drug-related offences, including trafficking, production and possession.
Police praised Crime Stoppers' role in the breakthrough.
We would encourage people, obviously, to utilise Crime Stoppers on every opportunity.
Josh Bristow, 9 News.
Bill Shorten today announced Labor's plan to increase naval presence in the north, which could provide hundreds of jobs for Townsville residents. It comes one day after the government's $75 million pledge for the port's channel widening project.
More jobs is Bill Shorten's promise to Townsville locals.
We're saying let's move some of our naval maintenance contracting to the Port of Townsville.
The plan to see Australia's 2 largest warships in permanent rotation to Townsville for maintenance, increasing the North's naval activity.
We would be hoping to speak with the Coalition and the government about getting bipartisan support on what we believe will be a catalytic opportunity for the North.
Discussions with the Royal Australian Navy are still required to finalise the proposal, the region's economic body claiming it's a logical step following the channel widening project, and hopeful it's just the beginning.
What we'd like to see longer term is a purpose-built facility, a berth here at the port that will support the RAN's long-term position.
The opposition leader also announced today Labor's plan to sign Australia's first military covenant, an agreement which would see more health and social support for our veterans.
Our defence personnel make a unique contribution to Australia. I think it's long overdue that we recognise this.
The opposition leader has invited the government to follow suit, insisting this issue is beyond political point scoring. Claire Boughey, 9 News.
In an Australian first, coral has been grown in an ocean-based nursery and planted on the Great Barrier Reef. Although strange, the new method could be the key to saving our treasured wonder of the world.
These are known as coral Christmas trees, and they're growing parts for a Frankenstein reef, pieces of coral glued to coral.
So we've just used this kind of like underwater clay glue sort of stuff that gets, we just glue effectively the corals back onto the reef.
They grow rapidly as well, powered by their own energy source.
It's just using its energy effectively to grow, because when it's on the reef, effectively it's using its energy to kind of fight off algae, fight off kind of other corals, fight off pests.
A lot of the corals on the Great Barrier Reef that are susceptible to things like coral bleaching and global warming tend to be the faster growing corals.
Right now, the coral Christmas trees are thriving in a small area off Fitzroy Island, Cairns, but there's also plans to move them further down the coast, starting with the frequently visited areas and eventually moving to the less popular or harder to access.
We are looking at this trial pilot as a proof of concept for this type of localised intervention at high-value tourism sites.
This could all be our best bet at rejuvenating our reef, which is under constant assault.
We're all sort of looking towards summer of this year to see how that plays out. We will be as adaptive as we always are.
Madison Williams, 9 News.
Arts and craft has taken on a whole new meaning for Townsville students, turning trash into treasure for a good cause. Participating Reef Guardian schools are creating works of art from recycled materials as part of Year of the Reef.
Recycling is critical today. Landfill options are becoming less and less, and the reality is that we've got to cut all this back.
It's really cool and fun because it's like we're reusing something that had already had another use.
Artwork completed during the program will be displayed at the Material Recovery Facility. Now let's take a look at the average price of fuel. In Townsville, you'll pay $1.493 per litre. The RACQ says that is the fair price. An elderly woman who had just moved to Queensland has been killed in what's believed to be a dispute over home renovations. Alleged murderer, 21-year-old Mark Daniel Ferguson, was remanded in custody after facing the Townsville Magistrates Court on multiple charges.
Pamela Corliss was new to Townsville, the 73-year-old moving from Victoria to be closer to family when her life was brutally taken.
This was not a random attack in that the deceased and the defendant were known to each other.
Police allege Pamela was killed in a dispute with a man who had been undertaking renovations at her new home.
We'll further allege that there was a dispute over that work and the payment for that work, which ultimately led to Miss Corliss's death.
Miss Corliss's lifeless body discovered by a family member in her yard on Monday.
You can imagine your mother or grandmother moving states to be close to you, and within a very short period of time this happening, so obviously they're shattered.
While investigations are ongoing, it's understood she suffered head trauma. Police arrested Mark Daniel Ferguson at his home last night. The 21-year-old charged with murder, willful damage and burglary. Incidents of this nature are obviously distressing for the community, and we understand that. I just want to reassure the Townsville community that the police work around the clock to keep you safe. It's the third time in the past few years an elderly woman has been killed in Townsville, prompting officers to remind residents to look out for one another. I think probably communication is the key. Just make sure you check in on them. Ferguson will face court again in March. Natalie, Wynne, 9 News.
The Queensland Government is taking legal action against Indian mining giant Adani for allegedly breaching its environmental conditions. It's alleged Abbott Point Coal Terminal made an unauthorised discharge of sediment water during Cyclone Debbie.
They started the day in song. And it seems someone was listening. After 2 days of protests at Queensland Parliament, finally a result. The environmental regulator taking action against the Adani-owned Abbott Point bulk coal over breaching a temporary emissions licence during Cyclone Debbie in 2017.
The Department of Environment and Science, as the regulator, have made this decision based on the best available legal advice and scientific advice.
It's alleged water discharge was 8 times the levels allowed.
The releases, as I understand it, was coal dust. It was muck that comes off these massive piles of coal that live at the port, and they've been released straight into the Great Barrier Reef World Heritage Area.
Whether you're a big miner, a small miner, if you do the wrong thing, you should be charged.
The Greens confident the breach should be another nail in Adani's coffin.
They can't be trusted and they need to be put in line by the government. It's time to scrap the project altogether.
It's unknown whether any environmental impacts occurred as a result of the discharge. The matter will be heard in the Boughey Magistrates Court in October. Natalie, Wynne, 9 News.